Hello everyone, we are going to start with another lecture of performance management, and in this lecture we are going to deal with the concept of time series analysis. Its initial part, we have discussed its initial part in the last video, and in today's lecture we are going to further deal with it. So I'm just trying to remind you there were three values which we were interested in calculation. The first value was the last average sales, right? This figure is the first figure, the second figure is growth, and the third figure is average seasonal variation. So there are three figures which we are supposed to calculate. So let's start with its calculation, right? So its calculation is quite a bit complicated. So what I did is I just trying to do it on Excel, and so try to be with me. So there are three. Let's suppose we have sales volume data of 3 weeks, right? From Monday to Friday, this is the first cycle. Then Monday to Friday, this is the second cycle, and this is Monday to Friday, which is the third cycle, right? So the first thing which you need to if you want to calculate the average sales, which we have identified as without, this is something which is without any seasonal variation. So for the calculation of average sales, let me try to show how we calculate the average sales, right? Because it's pure number crunching. So the first thing which we need to do is to identify the cycle. So identify the first cycle. What is the first cycle? First cycle is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we need to calculate the average figure of all these five figures, right? So this will be equals to sum, right? Is equals to sum starting from 1000 till 1300, right? And then 6600 is this figure, right? I've just pre-calculated all figures to save time. And then what you have to do to calculate the average, you need to divide 6600 with 5, right? So that will be 1320. So this is the first figure which we got, right? Now try to concentrate. The next thing which we do is we are going to calculate its moving average. It's not just average, it is moving average, right? So moving average means your average will move. So what we will do is we will exclude this 1000, right? We will exclude this 1000. Let me mark it with a different color. And instead of this 1000, instead of Monday of week 1, we will consider 1150. So the next average figure will be of comprised of these five figures. So we have included Monday, but not of week 1. We have included Monday of week 2. So we will not include this 1000, and we will move one step ahead, right? So how can we do it? Sum of these five figures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then divide it with 5, right? So what we will do next, definitely we will not consider Tuesday now, and instead of Tuesday we will consider the Tuesday of second week, which is 1300, right? So what we will do is we will add 1600 till Tuesday, right? And then we need to divide this figure with 5, right? And that's so on, and then we will start doing this thing. So if you calculate, if you see this column, this is just the summation of all these figures. I don't know why it's not showing it here, but I think this is the summation of all these figures, and this is basically the division. Oh yeah, I copied it from a Word document. So that's basically it. Now um and 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 the first two parts, first two column, first two cells, and the last two cells will remain empty, because if you want to calculate seasonal, if you want to calculate the average sales of this part, you should have two values above and two values below. We don't have two values above and two values below, so obviously we cannot do this, right? So don't worry about these four cells. These four cells will not be calculated in any case, right? So this is basically the average sales. So the first thing which we need to do was the calculation of last average sales. So these are the average sales, and this is the last, and this is basically average sales column. And in average sales column, 1721 is the last average sales. So what is the value of last average sales? Last average sales is equals to 1721, right? The next thing which we have to calculate is the value of growth, right? What is the value of growth, right? So for the calculation of growth, we will not consider growth means what? Growth means increase in sales, right? So, but we will not consider growth in sales volume. We will we will calculate growth in the average sales, like this part. What we are doing, we are trying to calculate growth is this straight line. So if someone wants to predict the sales of the next period, he needs to understand what is the slope of this straight line, right? That's basically what we are going to do. So the next figure is, this is the first figure. The second figure is uh, average growth, right? Average growth, right? I will include, I will add one more thing here. So what is the average growth in this case? Your sales were 1320, and your sales increased from 1320. From 1320, your sales increased to 1721. So what is the increase in the average sales? Increase in average sales is 1721 minus 1320. So this is basically the growth which is for the entire period, for all 3 weeks. But in this case, what we need to do is, like in this question, this is average growth per quarter, right? Because we were believing that quarterly we are considering the sales. So in this case, we will not consider, I mean, this is the growth, but this is not the average growth per day. So for the calculation of average growth per day, what we will do is we will divide this 401 with the number of growths, right? So what is the number of growth? The number of growth is actually equals to n minus 1. So there are, how many observations are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there are 11 observations. So number of growths will be 11 minus 1, right? This is the number of growths, right? So this is what? This is average growth per day, right? This is not the average growth per day. This is the average growth. This is basically the growth. The first figure is not average growth, this is just growth. And the second figure is average growth per day, right? So we got two figures, two main figures. Now what is the next? Now what is left? The figure which is left is average seasonal variation. What will be the seasonal variation? So for the calculation of seasonal variation, we need to calculate the seasonal variation first, right? So seasonal variation is actually representing what? Let me try to hide this column. So seasonal variation is what? This is the average sales, right? So what is the seasonal variation? Seasonal variation is the difference between the average sales and the actual sales, right? From this part. So how can we calculate seasonal variation? Our trend suggests that sales should have been 1320, but actually sales were 1600 on Wednesday. So it means on Wednesday sales were higher as compared with the average figure, right? Again, on Thursday, average sales actual sales was higher than the average sales. On Friday, actual sales was lower as compared with the average sales. On Monday, actual sales was less than the average sales. On Tuesday, actual sales was less than the average sales. On Wednesday, actual sales were higher than the average sales. On Thursday, actual sales was higher than the average sales. On Friday, actual sales was less than the average sales. And what we can do is we can just control D so that we can get the all the figures. So if you see, the interesting part is what? The interesting part is that if you see the seasonal variation in this question, you can observe a pattern, right? What pattern you can observe? You can see that on Wednesday the seasonal variation is positive, right? Let me try to mark it with a blue color, right? With a light blue, light shade of blue, right? On this Wednesday, it's again blue, positive variation. And on Wednesday, there is again a positive seasonal variation. So on Wednesday, we believe that our average sales, actual sales are higher than the expectations. Same pattern we are observing on Thursday. On Thursday, actual sales are higher, but we don't have data for this Thursday. Friday, however, is not good. Is not so good for the company. So the actual sales are quite a bit less than as compared with the expectation. So Let's try to have a different color. I don't know why it's not happening. Mm, yeah, same with these two, right? Let's try to mark a different color with all these. So, yeah. So we have positive days, we have negative days, I mean positive seasonal variation and negative seasonal variation. So now what we are now, if I ask you what will be the seasonal for the forecasting purposes, what seasonal variation will you consider for Wednesday? Let's suppose we want to predict, we want to forecast sales for the coming period. So what sales you will predict for Wednesday? Because 280 is also seasonal sorry, what seasonal variation you will predict for Wednesday, because it's 280, it's 488, it's 579. So which seasonal variation shall I consider if I really want to calculate, if I really want to know what will be the seasonal variation on Wednesdays? We should take the average, because I mean 280, 488, 579, we can take the average figure, right? So the next task for us is to calculate the seasonal variations, right? Every seasonal variation. So let's copy these figures and let's paste it with this one, right? Like this. Okay, so okay, so oops, we should have done this. Control C. It will copy color as well. Yeah, this is good. So what is the seasonal variation of week one? Right? This is just a way to write things. So we don't have seasonal variation here. Don't write zero. Don't write zero on Tuesday. First seasonal variation which we have is on Wednesday, right? Then we have on Thursday, right? And then we have it on Friday, minus 70, right? Then there's week two, right? It's around 300. It's around 174. It's around 488. It's around 74. Then it should be around 108, right? And for week three, it should be 134, and it should be around 579, right? So let's calculate the average seasonal variation, right? So every seasonal variation will be what? That will be sum of these two figures divided by 2. That will be, oh, sorry, that will be sum of these two figures divided by 2. Sorry, what we did, we divided by 2. Oh, sorry. Mm, divided by 2. What is happening? Oh, my numlog is off. Okay. What we can do is alternatively sum of this divided by count of this. 449, right? And then we'll move on, right? So this is what this is, every seasonal variations, right? Ideally, this should be the answer, but unfortunately, this is not the answer, because stat says that sum of all seasonal variations should be equals to 0. I'm repeating. Statistics says that sum of all seasonal variations should be equals to 0, right? Let's try to sum all seasonal variations here. Uh, Sum of all seasonal variations, right? It is equals to -1. Is there a mistake? No, there is no mistake. Uh, we need to adjust this. Like there is a proper adjustment for this, so you don't need to worry about that. -1 is higher. So what we need to do is we need to add +1, because if -1 is there's minus, I mean there is an excess of -1, we need to make 1 unit more of +1 so that it can nullify, right? But the problem is we need to add 1, but on which day we will add 1? There is again a conflict. So what we need to do is we need to divide this 1 with 5, right? And we will do same adjustment in all figures, right? I just did it incorrectly. So what we need to do is we need to plus 1. So 1 divided by 5, and that is 0.2, right? So is equals to dollar O dollar 18, right? So you just need to add this figure in all these columns. So this is the adjustment, right? So this will be adjusted seasonal variation, right? So this will be this plus this, right? And you just need to copy this to all points. So this is basically the third figure, right? So you calculated first figure, second figure, third figure. Now it's the most important part. If someone says that okay, fine, we have 3 weeks data and we know the sales. What if someone wants you to calculate? Someone is asking you to calculate sales of day one of week 4, right? It's extremely important for you to count. Counting is the most important part here. So you need to count from what was the last average sales. Last average sales was okay. Fine. What is the formula? Formula is uh, the first step is to calculate the average sales of required period. What is the required period? Required period is day one of week 4, right? And how we can do that? We have to consider last average sales. What is the last average sales? Last average sales is 1721 plus growth, right? So let's calculate the first step. First step is the calculation of average sales of required period, which is day one of week 4, right? And that is equal to what? That is equal to last average sales 1721, right? Plus growth. Now, what is growth? Growth in this case, average growth is 40.1 units per day. So you need to calculate how many days will be in between week 3, day 3 of week 1. You need to count day 3, week 1, week 3 to day 1, week 4. You need to count the distance, how many times growth. So we are already done with third day, right? So in week number 3, there are 2 days left. So one is for Thursday, one is for Friday. So there are 2 weeks left for week 3, and we are moving towards week 4, day 1. So there's just one day in week 4. That means from now, which is day 3 to week 3, to day 1 of week 4, there will be 3 days, 3 times growth, right? So this plus this, right? So this means that 3 times the company will experience 40.1 growth, right? Right. So what will be the average sales of required period? That will be 1721 plus 120.3. Is this sales? No, this is not the sales. This is the average sales. For the calculation of sales, we need to adjust seasonal variation. So sales of day 1, week 4 will be what? So sales of day 1, week 4 will be what? Average sales of that day plus seasonal variation. So we are actually on day 1. Day 1 has a negative seasonal variation, right? This is the negative seasonal variation. So what will be the sales? Sales will be this plus this. Right? So this is basically sales of day 1, week 4, right? This is the answer. These units, company will sell 1522 units. Now let's take one more example. right? Control C and let's control V this. And now we are talking about day 3 of week 6, right? We are talking about day 3 of week 6, right? So how can we do this? Again, we have to perform the same thing. So what we need to do is we have to calculate average sales of uh, day 3 week 6, right? This is what we have to calculate. So we'll start from the last average sales, right? And then we have to calculate the growth. Now, what is the growth? Growth is again 40.1 units per day. Now, the most important thing is to calculate the number of days uh, from this figure, which is day 3, week 3 till day 3 of week 6, right? So let's try to count this, right? How many days are left for week 3? Again, there are 2 days left. Week number 4, 5 days. Week number 5, 5 days. And week number 6, we are again moving to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? Third day is Wednesday, right? So how many total number of growths? Total number of growths will be 2 plus 5 plus 5 plus 3, right? I mean week 3, week 4, week 5 and week 6. So if there are 15 number of growths, right? So what we need to do is we need to multiply 40.1 with 15, right? So the 601. So what is the average sales of required period? 1721 plus 601. Now sales will be what? This is not sales. This doesn't include any seasonal variation. Sales of day 3 week 6 will be what? This will be 2322.5 plus Wednesday average seasonal variation, which is 449.2, right? So let me write it here. This plus this figure, right? So this will be this plus this figure. So obviously, since this is a positive seasonal variation, we added it. It's a negative seasonal variation. The actual sales are lower. So that's basically how we can calculate the average, the time series analysis part. So it's too it's complicated and it's too much number crunching thing. So in my opinion, generally you will get the sales figure and you will probably get the trend figure. So you need to do apart from all these calculation, you have to start from the next step, right? We'll do two questions more of this so that you can be sure of understanding this concept because it's tricky concept. So this is additive model of time series analysis. We will do one we will do one multiplicative model as well, and obviously I will upload this Excel sheet on your portal so that you can download it. All right, take care. For the I mean we will meet in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.